Welcome to the 14th episode of Business in 90 Seconds, an informative session on business insights. This week, I have a guest in my podcast, a high profile, award winning publicist. I would rather mention her as a kingmaker. The reason why I am introducing Tracy Lamourie to this show is to showcase the relevance of a publicist in business and entrepreneurship. Do not forget the two keywords from this show: elevate and amplify. As you all know, I'm a business coach specialized in business model designing. And 2 out of my 14 business canvases are channels and communication. In the show, Tracy amazingly explains how to use channels and how to communicate your story and the role played by a publicist in business. There are a lot of business insights in this entire 30 minutes conversation. Do not miss this if you are in business. Now, a short bio about Tracy. Tracy is a 2020 RBC Women of Influence nominee and was also recently nominated for the internationally prestigious Thalberg Ellison Global Leadership Prize. She is the winner of the first place Platinum Award, Hamilton Spectator's Readers of Choice for PR 2018, Diamond 2019. Tracy is passionate about amplifying important messages and being a voice for those who need one. Recognized by the media around the world for her 20-year campaign that ultimately helped free an innocent man from death row, Tracy is a high-profile international award-winning publicist and is the founder and managing director of Lamourie Media Inc. You as like a kingmaker. You made.
I like it. One of my clients calls me that all the time. She's like, "You're a queen maker."
Yeah, because you make entrepreneurs heroes. So this is really nice. So if I may to start, would you please explain how has been your journey so far? Like how did you come to this king making role?
How did I start? How did I get to be a publicist? That's quite a story. So the way I started is by saying the company history is I started but the real story of all that is how I became a publicist and learned to write a press release starts 10 years before that, back in 1999, 98. And I learned online in pre-Google days on Alta Vista to write a press release. And the reason what I was looking for is to get the word out, to get media to care about an innocent man on death row in Pennsylvania, a man who was innocent of a crime, had been sentenced to death in Pennsylvania in 1991. We got involved in 1998 just as activists and young people in our 20s who used to have a radio show that would speak about racism and social justice issues. And we no longer had that platform by the time we heard about the case of Jimmy Dennis. So we made a website online, and when he asked us for help, and we just wanted to get the word out. So I literally learned how to write a press release. Long story short, started an international campaign at the age of 28 when I was just in marketing in order to draw attention to that case. Fast forward a couple of years later, lawyers looking for a case of factual innocence got involved, put 17 years of work into it, which is what it takes to get someone off death row. And ultimately, he was released in 2017 on evidence of innocence. And now, interestingly, he's in the recording studio because he was always a musician. He's released 3 songs, 4th one being released tomorrow. He's been in Rolling Stone for his music. They've done a documentary in the Hamilton Spectator and in Rolling Stone, and now this media called How to Survive Death Row. And it includes quoted us as people who helped the team. So basically, long story short, I never expected to be a publicist. I did not learn how to write a press release thinking that was going to be my career. It was 10 years after that, after we'd been successful in getting that case in media on CNN, NBC, MSNBC, that I suddenly realized, as I was doing telemarketing one day, Jesus, I have got a lot of marketable skills that I have built up over my advocacy work in 10 years. And it just hit me like a light bulb one day, which entrepreneurs should think of that, because whether it's your hobby or passion or whatever else, you might be working at a bank, you might be doing whatever, but you have a whole other life in your experiences and your passions and your hobbies. And you may have skills with those, and you may be able to turn that into your passion, into your career. Internationally award-winning. I've been nominated for some international global prizes, and also here in Canada, I just won. Yay! I just won Women of Inspiration 2020 for Women in Media Awards. So that's
Great.
And two of my clients on the same night also won, which is even better. My 13-year-old client, Bolu, won for Youth Excellence. And my client, Patricia Gagic, who is an artist with dozens or decades of career in fine art behind her, won for Lifetime Achievement. So I had a Youth Excellence and a Lifetime Achievement, and I won. So Lamourie Media killed Women of Inspiration.
Excellent.
Swept the award show.
Yep. All right. So, how was this transition from, doing that great, you were telling about that great story of that kid. The transition to that commercial line of, helping entrepreneurs,
So how did I spring into that? So yeah, now my client base is across the board. Of course, I have entertainers and I have singers and artists and that kind of thing. But in terms of entrepreneur, people are often surprised because people often think that publicists are for celebrities. Well, I have a real estate agent. I have, aside from authors and everything, I have a real estate agent. I have a mortgage advisor. I have a financial advisor. I have a founder of a company that makes a body care and a beard oil. I have a paralegal. I have a SEO and marketing expert. I have, just so all of those are jobs that people consider just, mainstream, getting up and go to the office every day jobs. And they are, but all those people are experts in their field. What entrepreneurs often don't realize is that's the way to get media attention. It's not about your product or service. That's usually an ad. You don't look at the news and see somebody hey, new product. That doesn't happen. But what you do see on the news or in articles is people across industries being quoted as an expert in their field. And that's how you become a thought leader and such. And in 2020, if you're not thinking about more than just doing your job, if you're not also talking about your job and the environment and the things that every career or every job has that the mainstream don't know about, then you're falling behind because your competitors in your field are doing that. And that's where you hear the term, thought leadership and those things bandied around. But the credibility that media brings is worth more than any ad. So entrepreneurs across industry, no matter what you do, should be thinking about elevating your own voice, you as the expert. So it's not just your product, what you're selling, it's you as the expert in that industry, in that field, about that product. And that's where you find a lot of media opportunities. And if you're obviously speaking as the expert, ultimately they're going to be mentioning your product because that's why you're the expert.
How did you get this insight that there is an opportunity for everyone? It's not just for celebrities.
So are you asking how does the entrepreneur himself find out those opportunities?
How did you get that insight that
Oh, the insight. How did I learn that? That's interesting. I learned that actually by going, because at first, I was thinking that my clientele would be all authors. And I mean, obviously like about half of my client base is the people that you would expect to have a publicist, the actors, the authors, and musicians. And the other half, like I said, is the entrepreneurs. And I'm still learning that, actually. Just recently, for example, a client came to me a couple of months ago, and he's an SEO expert and a like online marketing expert. And there's, you might think, oh, there's so many people who do that. That's not going to be in the news. It's not, well, it turns out after he hired me, I thought, okay, geez, where am I? I had to look for the placement. I had to think, gee, where can I find? And as soon as I started looking, I found more placements for that client that week than I did for any other clients. Because there are, again, and so I learned again, even as a publicist doing it for 10 years, there are always opportunities, because there are tons of, from no matter what you do, there's going to be what do you read in your industry, right? There's blogs, there's magazines, there's shows, depending on what your industry is. There's things talking about it, podcast, especially now with the world of podcasts opening up. So my real estate agent client, there's a ton of mainstream media opportunities every day that come through, because what happens is, reporters often, they're not lazy, but they, like everybody, the job is easier on the internet now. In the old days, you had to go and knock on doors and do all that stuff. Now it's a lot easier for them to get quotes, by going online. And when you do that, how do you find somebody who is, well, number one, how do they find somebody? They're likely to find somebody who's been quoted before, because that they're going to be easy to find online. And then they come to Publicist, because they want someone who can give a good quote. And like, instead of going to, if they're looking for a real estate agent, for example, on the daily, I find opportunities for real estate agents to be quoted, which is surprising to some, because there are literally, you can't go out the door without seeing an ad for a real estate agent. So you would think that media, when they needed a quote, would just call one of those guys on the ads, but they don't. They look for somebody who can give good quotes, somebody who's familiar with media, somebody who will know not to be talk all ad, but to talk more about the issue. So so basically I learned by doing and segueing from the from marketing and sales, which I know what to do in those departments, for an entrepreneur, into, well, how can I find this entrepreneur an opportunity to speak? And because I learned, I didn't go to school for 4 years for PR. I didn't have to. I learned how to do it all on my own. So I didn't have somebody telling me, what to do and putting me in that box of thinking that's what I can do. Instead, I figured out the whole international landscape on my own. So I've had the client in Beverly Hills tell me that I do way more for them as a publicist than their high profile Beverly Hills publicist did, and get way more results, because I'm not just looking in those little boxes. I'm looking at this, and this, because I had to figure the landscape. So in figuring out that landscape, I realized there is a place for everybody. And if you elevate everybody and you tell everybody, look at this awesome person, what they're doing in their field, because they are, everybody is doing something in their field, or they wouldn't be elevated at that point. But we do it quietly, and we don't talk about it, and we just wait for somebody to notice it. Well, in PR and media, we're shining a spotlight on what you're doing, on what Joseph is doing, on what that entrepreneur is doing. And there is always a good story there. There's always a business story, a personal story. And then if it's really, if, we were completely locked for something and we couldn't find any angle, well, then we'll start talking to Joseph, because what I know about you right now is you're a podcaster, you do this or that. But once we start talking for an hour, you would start telling me about, your passion for motorbike racing, or how, so you have other expertise, other things about, and each of those things is a potential opportunity to get you quoted in the media. So say you loved swimming, and it was an article about swimming. It's not going to be anything about Joseph doing podcasting, but when they quote you, hey, yeah, I love swimming, blah, 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 said Joseph, the podcaster, and then they're going to name so there's always going to be a little bit of who you are or what you do professionally. And that right there, that could be enough to interest somebody, because if they love swimming too, for example, and now they found the podcaster who loves swimming, or the mortgage agent who loves swimming, I'm going to go. So it's about personalizing and telling their story, their human story, their business story. And there's always a story. Asking?
No, how do you publicize you?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've only recently started doing that. I'm laughing because now I'm on like hundreds of podcasts, and everyone's like, oh, look at you. And I'm like, see, this is what I should be doing for you. But this has all come about recently. I've been very quiet in the past, about my work, in terms of, I haven't been speaking about entrepreneurship or my own successes. But then when I was this year nominated for a couple of those awards, one of the awards had, a speaking component, and they wanted you to come up and speak. And so I was speaking with this power woman kind of stuff, and just whatever I do. And since then, other people have asked me to speak. It just, one leads to another, which I always tell clients. One speaking engagement leads to another, one media leads to another, one podcast leads to another. And so basically, because of the award that recently been, shine a spotlight on my work, people have been asking me to talk about my work. And the more I talk about my work, and explain about entrepreneur and elevating themselves to the top of media, then I say, just like I've done, because when I started 8 years ago, I was sitting here with nothing but an internet connection and a desktop and, no education in PR, just a little bit of skills. And I just started doing it at first, not talking about what I was doing, but just racking up clients talking about what I'm doing, other people saying I'm doing this well, building up but now I do what I do for my clients. And now I take the opportunity about an hour, if I'm promoting my clients 50 hours of the week, I've calendared in an hour a week to pitch myself, to do what I tell my clients to do, which is make sure people know about the work that they're doing. And I've done that maybe just for a couple of months now. And that has hugely elevated my PR business even more than it already was, because now I'm doing what I'm doing with you here, talking in Kitchener, talking in India, talking in Australia. And even though a lot of those places are not necessarily my client base, though they could be because they work internationally, it's about elevating the industry in general. I think I just think it's important that entrepreneurs know they have this in their toolbox, because in my conversations, again, 90% of entrepreneurs, they never consider it. They put all kinds of money into buying an ad, and real estate is a perfect example of that, because every agent has a giant budget for ads, not just the ads about the houses they're selling, but the big shiny pictures of them on the bus, and all that. So every agent spends so much money on that, and 99% of them do not have a publicist. And I go, oh man, because literally every single day I see, that's why I never look for clients, but I actually looked for a real estate agent client, which I have now, Nick Kite out of Ottawa, because I have so many opportunities for media, for real estate, that I was just letting pass every day. Reporter looking for an agent who can be quoted on this or that or whatever. I don't have one. So I finally said, oh my goodness, I need to find an agent, because this is ridiculous. So now I have an agent, because I already had the opportunities and didn't have the clients, so I had to find that client. But normally it's the other way around. But that just shows you, how much, if real estate agents were aware of that, wouldn't they all be getting a publicist instead of spending $1 million, on the advertising on the bus, which I'm sure they still need. But you don't need to place an ad when if you're being quoted in the Toronto Star, if you're on the CBC, you don't need to place an ad then. People are calling you because they hear.
Let's imagine a client comes to you. Do you have like a selection process, or do you take any clients?
So clients have to definitely be approved, because I only take on, you can't just come on, buy some, time on my site without me talking to you first, because messaging is important. And the one thing also, I care about what the person does. So that's number one. Then, is it a message I want to put out in the world? Is it something fine? And it doesn't have to be super special, but there's two components. Do I compare, is the person a good person too? I don't want to put out any messaging. Like, I do not deal with any racists. I'm a longtime activist. So I come from activist world. I don't come from the money world, right? So everything has to pass my bottom line, which is this a message I feel good about putting out in the world? So I look at your social media, and I look at your, and if there's somebody who, like, and this is me, because this is who I feel comfortable representing is their voice. I look at their social media, because the way I look at it, if you can't use your social media in a way that benefits the world, like if you're just complaining or bitching or racist or whatever else, if you can't use your social media, the voice you already have, in a beneficial way, I am certainly not going to be the publicist providing you with a platform and a microphone and cameras to spew that elsewhere. So I just like people who are doing good things and doing, either good things for the world or things that are not harmful for the world, and they have a good attitude and all that. So people reach out to me, they find me on their website, they set up a time to talk. I'm happy to do an hour long, half an hour consult, whatever people need. We talk. And usually by the end of it, we're laughing and we're like, oh, I'm like, oh yeah, you're so hiring me because I need to work on this project. And they're like, I'm so glad I met you.
How long would it take, to have the real results out for the client? Is it 3 months, 6 months, or like as per your experience?
How long till they get media?
Yeah, because it's an investment
Oh, well, right
side
away,
of the
usually,
client.
normally, once I take someone on, I normally know at the beginning. I used to say, early on, well, we don't know exactly which media you're going to get. And that's still sometimes true. But now I know right out the gate, I have a couple of editors that I'm good with, and I know what kind of stories they take. And so by the time I take on a client, I usually have 2 or 3 ideas immediately where to go that we're going to get some media attention. So after 2 weeks of working with me, they should have had an interview, a podcast, maybe an article written about them already, and be looking for more. So, I prefer 3 months because in 3 months, we have a nice time to build a strategy and see all kinds of results. But certainly in 1 month, some clients, especially again, if you don't know what PR is and it sounds good and it looks good, but you don't really believe you're going to get media attention. You've never done it before. Some people just like to start with a 1 month, right? And I'm like, give me a month. And 2 weeks in, they're like, oh my God, this is going to elevate me so much. This is great. I can't believe, how are you doing this? And I just tell them it's just about shining a light. There's a million media possibilities, just like you and I connected, right? These days. And that's the same thing as mainstream media, television, radio. It's all, it all needs content. And it's a matter of understanding the audience is where Publicist comes in, understanding the audience, understanding the editor, understanding the news cycle, understanding how and where you might fit into it.
Okay, nice.
And that's what's hard for an entrepreneur sometimes without guidance, because they think, oh, just, this new product, they don't see what's not news. They don't really understand what's news as opposed to what's, so the key is editorial versus advertorial. And you have to ask yourself that as an entrepreneur really harshly. Is the message that I'm wanting them to put out, is the message I'm hoping the editor will put out for me? Am I just wanting a free ad because that's what the editor's thinking? Or is this really truly a piece of news important to their audience? And that's never going to be your business giving a sale or something. A piece of news important to their audience would be some knowledge they don't understand about the industry or something that relates to their life. And you're a spokesperson bringing that message to them, not a salesperson selling something. That comes later.
What would be the first thing you would be doing?
Once they sign on with me, my first thing?
Yeah.
So first of all, they're going to send me everything that's online about them, all their socials, everything else. I'm going to evaluate it, put it all together. I mean, just, like on a page. I'm going to write up a bio. They may already have a bio, but I'm going to have them send me their bio. I'm going to write up my version. I'm going to punch it up. It may just need a little bit of change. It may need a whole Lamourie media write up, using the power words, using the excitement. So once I have that and then a mini bio, like a little about, and then I start looking for those opportunities. So, whether it's TV, like I do my onboarding, an hour on that client to start just finding, a first thing for them, a first podcast, So basically it's as easy as it's communications and research. Essentially, that's the non-glamorous part of PR, the non-party part, the non-glitzy part is writing up some compelling information that really encapsulates what that person is, what they do, why they're different, why they're worth speaking to, and presenting it to media, finding the right times and the right opportunities. You can't just blanket everything and think they're gonna. So you gotta really, if it's an industry or something I'm not familiar with, the first thing I usually do, in addition to all my 10 years of media lists that I have and contact lists I've developed, I also go and do a couple hours of research. Who has written about that topic recently? What outlets have written about that topic? What are they saying? What reporters? Is there something that's an ongoing story that I can fit my client in with a new commentary? Or do I need to create a story starring my client? Or can I just find opportunities where these things are being spoken about that I can insert them as an expert? And beyond that, then profiles, I'm also a writer. So I write for a couple different publications. They all know I'm a publicist, and they all know that, these are my clients that I'm writing about. But I have to be in my journalist hat, when I do that, which is understanding what the editor wants, making it an article that is actually of interest to their audience, and not just an advertorial piece. So I write profiles, people that get it published in Los Angeles Prosperity Press. I'm a regular writer for, and they do wellness, success, business, justice. So pretty much anybody that I would take on, has something enough. Because when I take someone on, I have to know they're interesting, because I don't want failures, right? So, and I don't have any. I always take people on that I know I can get placed. And that, again, that's pretty much everybody, right? Anybody. It's a matter of understanding it. So by the time I've taken them on, I've already understood in my head, what I can do and what I can try to do. And then it's just a matter of creativity and research and, being compelling and convincing, and convincing that media that this is a story and this is my person, and put them on.
And when you specifically mention about the media, do you have like a specific media? Is it going to be a TVs or books or like a newspaper? Like
all of it. So that's where I say we never know at the beginning of any particular project which media specifically, other than I know I can get an article in Prosperity Press that I write, or if it's a cannabis client, I write for Skunk Magazine, or, so other than the ones that I write for that I know, I can place. At the outset, we don't know. I'm doing the press release. I have had clients placed. I have a list this long, literally almost every media outlet in Canada, literally, that I have placed clients on. And that doesn't mean, sometimes it's only the one. Sometimes sometimes I might have pitched Maclean's. Man, I send Maclean's everything, every national story. I've only got one story in Maclean's. Oprah.com, I send them, 10 different stories. I've got only two stories in Oprah. So there's not a matter of, I can get you in CBC. Oh, yeah, I can get you in Oprah. But I have got clients in CBC. I have got clients in Oprah. So all those things, it's just down to the research. And that's, again, where my skill comes in, knowing what each of those shows, what those newsrooms look for, what they cover, and then finding clever ways to pitch my clients. So when I write a press release, as opposed to like something like Hero or a Source Bottle, where I'm connected and looking, or Matchmaker, where I'm finding media that is looking for content and matching up, my clients. When I'm writing a press release, it's way more wide. I'm writing a piece. I could be sending it to 1,500 media, 500 media across the country, and it will be a hit. It's a success if like 2 of them answer. It's, I could be sent to 500 media and it's nothing, but then all of a sudden CBC picks it up, and, the Toronto Star. Well, that is a hit story now. That's got 2 major media. So done, so we never know for sure, but my palette, my board where I work is right across the board. And I've had literally clients in almost every media, outlet that I can think of in Canada, from tiny little newspapers to major national to serious so nothing is, beyond. Every single thing they're all, to me, they're exactly the same. To me, pitching you as a podcaster or, CBC National Radio is absolutely no different. You have your audience, you have your specific content. I have to understand. And after we do this, you're going to hear from me in future, because I got, I'll be like, how about if I send you Felix Cow now, my neuromarketing expert, or Christina, so now I know what your content is and what your audience is, right? So we've developed a relationship now as you and media, and I'll be sending you suggestions too. Like, does this fit? So it's all about that. It's about building relationships, understanding audiences, and finding opportunities for me and for my clients to speak to those audiences.
Sharing with our audience one of the greatest success story you always cherish, which you have done for your client.
Well, the number one, the one that, when I think about my success and my whole job, everything here, the story that comes to me is the one that I started when I wasn't even a publicist and didn't know what that was, which is helping to free an innocent man from death row. Because, that just sounds epic. It doesn't even sound real now, when I think about it. But when you're doing it, just day to day. So that, but that, I didn't have a business when I started that. And so, but a good example since I've started my business is Bolu, the 13-year-old who just won the Women of Inspiration Youth Achievement Award. So who knows what she's going to do in the world. But I'm really proud of that one, because there's a little 13-year-old girl, no matter what she decides to do in the world now, whether it's the music that brought her to that stage when she sang a little song called Make It Right. I saw her singing on a stage with my friend and put her on a stage. And it's a little song. It's a song about, Aboriginal rights and Black Lives Matter. And it comes from a 13-year-old saying, how did the world just make it right? Right. And so I thought, Jesus really needs to be her. And it's not just the message. It's her. She's an amazing little artist, singer, and songwriter. And so I called all my friends in the media. I got her on CBC. I got her on CBTV. I got her on Global. I introduced her to some industry people who recorded her now. And now we got a professional recording, gorgeous professional video. She just won the Women of Inspiration Award. She was on Ticker TV in Australia, 13 years old, giving that little child like that a voice, because, and she's got a powerful voice and she's a good speaker. Because what I always say, when people talk about, why I'm successful, I think what it comes down to is I learned very young, even before I figured out business, when I didn't care about business, I learned very young that I have a voice that will be heard. And if I speak out, it can make a difference.
I would like to have like one last question for you, which is like, why are you doing what you're doing? What is like, other than the commercial side, like what inspires you to keep doing this? Because I see you so passionate, talking for last half an hour. So there will be something.
Yeah, in the end, every single day. Yeah, every day in the end, that those words with amplification and elevation are really what it comes down to. Is, I feel honored and lucky because, every one of us in life meets people or see things that we admire or respect. I have somehow built a life for myself where I've surrounded myself with people who are doing amazing things that I am thrilled to be a part of, from television productions to ideas to bringing books into the world, to just women or small businesses elevating themselves and just finding a path through 2020, smiling at the end of it and realizing it's not the end of the world with all of this, that they're, so helping entrepreneurs, and I don't want to say this entrepreneurs, business people, entrepreneurs, anybody with them, activists, artists, elevating people, because you don't, and showing the world you don't need to have started up here to get up here. We've got all the power in our hands right now, especially in 2020, especially, we are the media now. You are the media. I am the media. I changed my company name from Lamourie Public Relations when we incorporated to Lamourie Media, because we are content creators, and so, yeah, so we all have the responsibility to get good things out there. And I'm thrilled that somehow I've managed to create a life where I'm surrounded by things that I'm passionate about, working 15 hours a day, but it's not work because it's stuff that I love.
So this is what you need to tell, you would like to tell the world, right? That if you have something, a story to tell, or you have something unique, you should elevate, you should amplify, so that the
Don't be shy. Exactly.
The entire world, gets to know you and gets to get inspired from you, so that you are making a signature for yourself to the world.
The only difference between those people is they have a publicist, or they figured it out themselves. That's it. They're not the best. People always assume if they're talking to the doctor on TV, must be the best doctor, the best real estate agent. The media must have knocked down all the doors to get the very best in their field. No. That's the one who wrote a press release. Or the guy the reporter knew or just was in their mind because they had to. So you got to be the one in their mind. Get yourself out there so people know what you're doing, and don't be shy.
Thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate you being in part of our show. I'm sure our audience would be really loving each and every moment of what you were sharing to the world. I wish you all the best.